Alright, let's welcome back to a new video on this channel. And in this video, we need to talk about the future of Newcastle United's midfield. Anyway, here we are talking about Newcastle's midfield, and I suggest there is only one place for us to start, which is the midfielders we actually do have on our books. Starting things off obviously with Captain Fantastic Bruno Guimaraes. Now he's one of those two midfielders we genuinely do not need to worry about, and it's very clear to see why. He is our captain. He's unbelievable with driving the ball up the field, which means we can progress from defense into attack a lot quicker than normal. He is tenacious. He wins an unseen amount of fouls. He travels the most distance out of pretty much any player in the Premier League. He's an absolutely unbelievable midfielder, so he's not going anywhere. Next to him, Sandro Tonali has probably been our best player this season in my opinion. He is magnificent on the ball. He is an unbelievable dog of the ball, working so unbelievably hard, both as our defending number 6 and as someone who presents himself to combine with other players in our midfield from our fullbacks, who wants to progress the ball himself up the field, who brings the same energy Bruno does. So those two players, I mean, they don't have to start every single game, as we saw last week, a couple of days ago against Spurs. We can start the game without Bruno and still beat what is quite a strong opposition team. So that's a real big positive for us. But those two are the untouchables, shall we say, in our squad. Next up we have Joelinton. Now Joelinton, I absolutely adore him. He is a phenomenal player. He has the physicality, I mean, to compete on any sort of level in this league. He has the engine to keep running for us. He has the understanding of what Eddie Howe wants from him. But in my opinion, especially in games where we are the team who need to be creating the play and setting the tempo, I think Joelinton stands out, and not necessarily in a good way, because he is a bit more limited in a footballing sense in my opinion. He is a little less creative, but what he is a very big outlet for us. So if he can run in behind of Voltemade or next to Voltemade, we can skip the midfield entirely with a direct pass, something which Manchester United has been trying to do over the recent games. And I think that's a really interesting case as well, so I definitely would not get rid of him, especially given his versatility as well, being able to play out on the wing. But I do think we need to reduce the reliance we have upon him and the amount of minutes he plays for us. Next up, Lewis Miley. Now, Miley is an obvious keep. He is still so incredibly young. He is a really good player, but I'm not quite sure what he's going to become. I think he will become a defensive contributor, but I don't necessarily think he will be an out-and-out 6. Meaning he will be one of those players we play in a game where we need a bit more control in the middle of the park, where we know teams will try and overrun us through the middle, through the center of the park. I think playing Tonali and Miley in a defensive partnership could be really interesting and could allow a player like Bruno Guimaraes, for example, to roam a little bit more forward. Then, one of our summer signings, Jacob Ramsey. We haven't seen an awful lot of Jacob Ramsey as of this far, but we have to admit he has made quite a pretty positive impression, especially on me. He has the energy levels Joelinton has. He has the versatility to go out on the wing as well as playing in the middle of the park, which is a real big positive, because not only does it offer you versatility at the start of games, it offers you tactical versatility during the game as well. When one player shifts into a midfield position, say for example in Nick Voltemade, Ramsey can go out wide, but we'll get into those specifics in a little bit. And then there is Joe Willock. Joe Willock has energy, is probably one of the more creative midfielders we own, but his body is made out of glass and he is struggling to find any sort of minutes or rhythm in this team at this moment in time. So in all honesty, I would be surprised if we weren't to sell him to, let's say, a Fulham in January or even in the summer. Now, what do we lack? There is one big glaring issue in my opinion when it comes to this midfield, and that is the lack of a creative presence. With Tonali, Guimaraes, Joelinton, you all have players who physically can bring the ball from your back line to your front line and set up an attack. But I don't think we have anyone who can set a tempo by sitting still in midfield, if you know what I mean. By sitting in that number 6 role and passing the ball around, that's a different way of deciding tempo without having to rush forwards and run more than your opponent does. And I don't think we have any players who offer us that possibility. As well as some more depth. It's definitely something we need, in my opinion, as well. We need to be able to rest Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali in different games than the EFL Cup, because I mean we're winning that one yet again back to back. But other than that, there's also a big problem defensively, and this is where I would like to reach out to the tactics board. So here we are on the tactics board, and here you can see the starting 11 of Newcastle United. Now, I'm sure we are all aware this is pretty much how Newcastle defend under Eddie Howe. Admittedly, this season it's turned a bit more into this, which I don't necessarily know if it is helping us very well, but one of the main problems we do have to assess when talking about this structure is this problem here. Because people are finding it way too easy to pass in between our midfield, especially in between Tonali and his partners, because these midfielders are actually all of the time so unbelievably close to one another, but always on the same little line, which means we don't have any backup cover, shall we say, if a pass splits that midfield line, which is a very real possibility, as we saw against Brighton. They just cut through the middle of us. Now, if you manage to reach an opponent here with a pass through that midfield line, I mean, you can see it for yourself. Joelinton has to run back, Guimaraes has to run back, Tonali has to run back, and all Botman and Thiaw can really do is wait for it. But the problem is, or one other problem is, we play in a mid block pretty much, which means we'll be standing here. So if those players play these balls in behind, Botman and Thiaw have to run so far back. Whoever our fullbacks are, which, I mean, at this moment in time, it's not even Livramento and Hall, it's Trippier and Byrne, who are a lot less fast than those two are. They have to run back as well, which means there's all of this space for opposition attackers to run into, and that's starting to become a real big problem for us, because we have an unbelievable defense at this moment in time. Let's not understate any of that, but especially against Brighton, that's the ball we really do struggle in, just got right through our center. So what I would like to do is I would like to go over 3 options for a number 10 role to address that creativity problem, 3 options for a number 8 role, which will address both problems and a bit of depth in my opinion, 3 options for a deep line playmaker in at number 6, and 3 options for a destroyer in at number 6. So without any further ado, I suggest we get straight into that with our first number 10. And this first number 10 is not necessarily the most realistic option, probably, but it is one I will put forward nonetheless because it is, in my opinion, the absolute dream signing for Newcastle United. It's Nico Paz. Nico Paz is a young Argentinian midfielder who I have been waxing lyrical about this entire start of the season and the end of last season. He is 20 years old, left-footed, surprisingly tall and physical for an Argentinian playmaker, but he is ripping it up for Como in the Serie A. And he combines 3.6 shots per 90 with 5.7 long passes received, so he is a long pass outlet, which means you replace some of the things you lose when taking Joelinton out of this midfield, and it also means that it's a different player for someone like Nick Voltemade to interchange with. And Nico Paz is also left-footed, as I mentioned before, meaning he can swerve out to the right a bit more. If you were to visualize that, I suggest we move Joelinton to the bench for now. We bring Nico Paz in there. And this is pretty much how I would line up with Nico Paz, in my opinion. Play him in at that number 10 role, right behind Bruno Guimaraes, right behind Nick Voltemade, that is, and have Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali right behind him. Now the reason I swapped around the positions of Bruno and Tonali is because if we are in the attack and Elanga is running towards here, Voltemade is maybe pulling back, I think Paz could be really effective there. Bruno Guimaraes could be here, and Gordon could be here or here. Either way, this is options, you know what I'm saying? And Voltemade can combine here, then get into the box himself. Nico Paz can shoot from here, can cross from here, can play it into Bruno, who can shoot. I mean, the options are pretty endless, as you can see, and he can do a fop-up-pow himself as well. The thing is, I'm really excited about Nico Paz, especially given that left foot as well, which is an absolute one of his. I've seen him give crosses from this area, which, I mean, have an unbelievable curvature towards that second post? Far post. Anyway, Nico Paz is an unbelievable talent, and he would be my preferred candidate for that number 10 role. A different option in that number 10 could very much be AS Roma's Matthias Soulé. Now, I'm not really paying a lot of attention to aesthetics right here, as you can say, but Soulé is actually maybe even more of a wing fielder than Nico Paz is, for example. So, I'm drawing again for no reason. So, let's say we were to move up the pitch and be on the front foot. Elanga could cut in here to look to drag balls back in here for both Nick Voltemade and maybe an Anthony Gordon, who can come running in. You have Bruno Guimaraes, who we know is a great box crasher. Tonali could be the same thing, but Matthias Soulé could be here, in this area, either giving a cross himself, offering Elanga a different option, some support in behind him. His cross, I mean, let's do it with a curved line. His crossing to the back post is absolutely phenomenal as well. He's got a wonder of a left foot himself, and he has the possibility to play right wing as well, which means we on the one hand have a left winger who is left footed, which is something we don't have at this moment in time, and two, have a different, more creative option compared to, for example, an Anthony Elanga, who is a really direct player. So I think Matthias Soulé is a really interesting option for us as well. Now, There is one more player in that number 10 role I would like to discuss, but this is a bit more of a different profile than Nico Paz and Matthias Soulé are. I'm talking about Sunset. Now the thing with Sunset which really interests me is that he's interchangeable with Nick Woltemade. They can cover each other. I mean, when Nick Woltemade drops back, Sunset can run in behind him. We've seen for Bilbao he knows where the goal is. He scores about 0.4 non-penalty goals per 90, which is really respectable, especially for number 10. He also has the pace to feature on the wing, but I think that number 10 / shadow striker role is a lot more suited to his game. He takes nearly 3 shots per game, which is a real big positive as well. The one thing I do worry with him is that we don't have anyone who is able to drop out wide, like for example a Nico Paz or a Matthias Soulé are. And I think that's where most of our, not necessarily luck, but most of the freedom will be found when Nick Woltemade is combining in the box. So even though Sunset is probably the more realistic target out of those 3, I think Nico Paz is the dream target and Matthias Soulé is probably the one you should be going for if that's the role you want to recruit in. But at the end of all my suggestions, so there's still 9 more to come, I will tell you what midfield pair I would buy if I were Newcastle United, either in January or in the summer, or one in January and one in the summer. Now let's talk about our number 8 position. We have in that number 8, and when I'm talking about a number 8, I'm talking about someone who can drive us on forward and actually maybe offer cover for Bruno Guimaraes, because this week we played against Spurs, like I mentioned before, and we won, but I don't necessarily see a profile who offers us the things Bruno Guimaraes offers us. With Jacob Ramsey, I think he's more similar to Joelinton, and Lewis Miley, I think he is more similar to Tonali. So, if we are looking for a player who has a similar skill set to Bruno Guimaraes, I want to suggest we just bring back Elliot Anderson. I mean, what can we say about Elliot Anderson that we don't know yet? This is a player who is unbelievable at turning in tight spaces, driving the ball up the field, not losing possession in dangerous areas, shall we say. He just keeps you ticking over in such a professional way, which is a really great skill to have. But he has added a lot of creativity and a very big defensive numbers to his game as well this season. So that's a very big positive as well. It means you can play a double pivot of Elliot Anderson and Tonali and give Bruno Guimaraes some more license to roam forward, for example. It means you can rest Bruno for one game, maybe give Elliot Anderson that license and play a double pivot of Miley and Tonali, for example. That's a different possibility. The one thing that is so important to me at this moment in time is that we don't allow for those easy balls in here. Because if a player wants to play that ball in here, it's either going to be Elliot Anderson who's taking it into this space, or Miley and Tonali can drop out in that space. And the thing with that is this is a lot more room than what we were actually defending before, which is pretty much, it's a lot more space covered with the exact same amount of people than this is, for example. And I think that I like this way of defending, and I know Gordon is here and Alanga is here, which means you are defending these spaces as well. But the thing I'm trying to say is, but simply by placing at least one, but maybe two of these here, you cover an entire zone instead of just one line. And that's what we need to be after when reinforcing the defensive capabilities of our midfield. I think Elliot Anderson could offer us that. He definitely could offer us the physicality and the running capabilities to do so. A different player who is pretty much the same profile, but maybe Elliot Anderson isn't open to a return to Tyneside, which I would find rather strange, but is always a possibility. Let's talk about Kobbie Mainoo. Now, Kobbie Mainoo I know I said I'm looking for a player who can replace and rotate with Bruno Guimaraes, and I think that's what he is, because he does resemble a lot of what Elliot Anderson is really good at, playing in that tight area, worming himself out of pressure, thereby bringing the ball up the field. I think those are all really important qualities for a midfielder to have, but I don't know how realistic it is that he comes to Newcastle. I know Napoli are trying all they can to loan him in January, and I think they will get that over the line. And if he is convinced that moving away from Manchester United is the right thing to do for him in the summer, then I think he will go to Italy on a permanent. But he would offer a really good, or a really similar profile to Bruno Guimaraes. Now, one more player I would like to talk about is Javi Guerra from Valencia, because again this is a deep line playmaker, so a position we pretty much need. He is unbelievably creative, as you can see from his underlying stats, and he makes nearly 2 progressive passes a game, meaning instead of actually taking it forward himself, he plays it forward. So Voltemade wouldn't have to come so deep all of the time, and he can link up the play from here, which means if Elanga or Gordon were to come close to him, he could link a play with them a lot closer to the opposition's goal, meaning we immediately are in a lot more dangerous area to attack the opposition's box. So also with the midfield dynamos of Tonali and Guimaraes, this does look like a weird structure, but at the end of the day, all you have to really think about is pushing your opponent into making decisions, and this would definitely push them into making some probably pretty horrifying decisions. So Javi Guerra is a really interesting option for me as well. Those are kind of the number 8s I've been looking at to maybe give Bruno Guimaraes or maybe even Sandro Tonali in some of the games a rest. But I think for Sandro Tonali to be given a rest, we need to be looking out for a destroyer. And a destroyer could offer us a bit more flexibility in defending as well in our midfield. Now the first player I would like to suggest for that midfield role is Enzo Barrenechea. Now Barrenechea plays for Benfica, so he knows England a little bit, not too much, because he is actually on Aston Villa's books, but he was, he was part of that really weird deal where Douglas Luiz went to Juventus and some money plus Enzo Barrenechea plus Samuel Ealing Jr. came towards Aston Villa, and then they just loaned out both. Now Barrenechea was loaned out to Valencia last season, and he actually made quite a big impact on them. And this season for Benfica has been pretty great as well. 2.7 tackles per 90, 1.3 interceptions per 90, 2 clearances per 90. He's also not bad in the air, and he has that Argentinian doggedness in him. He's a real fighter in that midfield. So I think he could be our sitting number 6 and a real destroyer, which allows you to have both Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali who can run forward. So with Bruno Guimaraes you can have someone who is box crusher and have Tonali wait on the edge of the box for the second ball, or change it around. The thing I'm saying is both of those players are good enough and have the engines to contribute in our attack, and in that case we probably don't even need a creative number 10, because if we are, for example, playing against a Manchester City, a Liverpool, an Arsenal, you know, those teams we ideally like to compete with, I think this could be a really interesting option, because we won't get that much time on the ball when playing them. So having someone who can break up the play, make sure they can't pass right through our midfield, and give Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali the opportunity to use their physicality and their ball progression rather than someone who is a bit more easy on the ball, could be a really interesting option. The same, and pretty much the exact same, can be said for Rafa Onyedika. He does lack a bit more, or a lot more, in his defensive contributions, but you do have to take into account that he plays for Club Brugge in Belgium, who is one of, if not the best team in Belgium, so he doesn't face an awful lot of traffic. He has the physicality, he has the pace, and I do also think, I mean, he beats his man once a game. He has the capabilities to be involved in our possession play as well. However, my favorite option in that number 6 role is Tyler Adams off of Bournemouth. Now, I know what you're thinking, Bournemouth might even actually finish above us in the league, so that wouldn't make much sense for us to be taking their players. But Bournemouth is a club who is really realistic about their players, about not being able to keep a hold of every single one of their players. And Tyler Adams could be the next on the conveyor belt of big sales. He has struggled with fitness over his career, but at this moment in time we can very much say he knows the Premier League inside and out. He seems to be keeping fit this season, and his defensive statistics are absolutely through this roof. He combines 3.6 tackles per 90 with 1.6 interceptions and 1.6 blocks per 90. He is fast, he is physical. He is a fantastic number 6, and I think he could both play alongside Tonali in games where we want to allow Bruno Guimaraes a lot more freedom to roam forward, or he could be our lone number 6 with Tonali or Bruno Guimaraes playing a bit deeper and the other one bombing on. You could also, for example, have a Jacob Ramsey in there if you want two really attacking midfielders, because I genuinely do believe on the one hand Tyler Adams has the defensive statistics to do so, and on the other hand Bruno Guimaraes is also not too rigid or bad to get involved or get stuck in with the tackling. And again, it's those passes straight through our middle. Now we are giving ourselves opportunities to make sure teams can't get it there. Now, for that deep lying midfield role, that's a really interesting one as well, because I would suggest the first player, Adam Wharton. Adam Wharton is an unbelievable passer from deep. And I will already give this away. I think having a deep line playmaker could take us genuinely to a whole new level. Now let's talk about Adam Wharton. The thing with Adam Wharton is I think he would be best in games for us where we are expected to create the bulk of the chances, dictate the tempo of the game, basically be the better side. He doesn't have to come far up the pitch to dictate the attacking play by his unbelievable long balls, which, I mean, those passing lanes from him to Gordon, Voltemade and Elanga, and actually we can just as well say to Livramento and Hall, because, I mean, he's very capable. That could be such an interesting way of our opponent not knowing which way, which side, via which player we will be attacking the opposition. And not only do you have and that means not only are you defending this zone right here, which is a really big positive as well, a really big net positive, but you're basically just adding this zone to it as well with Wharton, who is able to basically, if Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes are able to intercept the first passes, I think you can ask Adam Wharton to just roam around behind them when we are not in possession, to just make sure that Botman and Thiaw aren't exposed like they were against Brighton. And in an attacking scenario, as I said with those long passes, you can just have your players freely move up the pitch, and with those running freaks like we have in, for example, a Tonali, a Voltemade, a Bruno Guimaraes. Voltemade is a freak, not necessarily a running freak. If they could just play slide balls back, one, lay it off to the midfielders who are running in, that could be so unbelievably effective for us. So that's just another way for us to move up the pitch fast, be direct, be in control of games, especially against sides struggling against you. We can keep the segment really short and sweet, because if we want to look at the second player, I would suggest Pavlovic is pretty much the exact same profile as Adam Morton is, almost down to a T, which is pretty scary. But there is one different player who stands out to me. A player who can move all of this up a bit further up the pitch. A player who knows someone in our squad already and can communicate pretty easily with one or two other players. A player who combines 86 attempted passes with nearly 10 progressive passes per 90, 0.3 assists per 90. I'm talking about Angelo Stieler. Angelo Stieler is a player who manages to bring calm to what is probably the most uncalm and chaotic league in the world, which is the Bundesliga. His dictation of the play is unbelievable, and he is 24 years old, about to turn 25. So that means when all of these teams who will be looking out for a midfielder in the summer, and I think Liverpool will be one of those teams, but if they were to rival us for any midfielders, I think it would be Tyler Adams. Arsenal probably don't need another midfielder. Chelsea definitely do. Man United definitely do. City definitely do. So there is going to be competition for midfielders, but I do think Adam Wharton, maybe even Pavlovic, Baleba, those are the players who will be looked out for first. So there could be a big market opportunity for us there to steal yet another Stuttgart player, but Angelo Stieler, he's absolutely phenomenal. So basically those are my suggestions for our midfield upgrades. If I was to choose a dream duo, I mean, I would love Nico Paz to sign for Newcastle United, because I do think he's going straight to one of the very best players in the world. But I would combine him with Javi Guerra, who would offer us some of that creativity from deep, but also a possibility for a number 8 dynamo, and actually a partner in defensive midfield for either Tonali or Miley as well. So his versatility along with Nico Paz's class could be fantastic, but I am going for a more realistic duo, which is Angelo Stieler from Stuttgart, to bring us the possibility of controlling games against lower opposition, of having a deep-lying playmaker who can have Bruno and Tonali bomb on, because he can play in Hall, Gordon, Voltemade, whoever he likes. And I want to combine him with the signing of Tyler Adams, because this is an out-and-out number 6, which, I mean, is something we don't really have, because Tonali is playing that role for us, but it's not necessarily what Tonali is, or it's a shame to limit Tonali to that role, because he has a lot more to his game, and he has the ruggedness, he has the doggedness in him. I think he would suit playing for Newcastle really well. So if I were chairman, if I were the one who makes the transfer decisions, I would be signing Angelo Stieler, and I would be signing Tyler Adams, and I would sell Joe Willock. That would be my midfield rebuild for Newcastle United this summer. If you did go on to enjoy this video, please do make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Please check out my channel as well, Project Pundit on YouTube. Check out our social media pages, Magpie247 on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use. Please go over there and give us a follow. Have I missed out any other midfield targets? What do you think is the problem with our midfield, or how do you think our midfield could get better? Please let us know, and I would like to see you in the next one. Have a good one.